So you're at the page in the manual that has a picture that looks, or a diagram that looks something like this. Now, in the previous modules, we talked about your coffee shop, right? Your focus, notice, awareness circle. And we talked about how in our coffee shop, you and I are seated at the table in the center called the present moment table. And what is the present moment? Well, the present moment is right here, right now. So you are watching this video, that is now in this present moment. And right now I am playing a part of your present moment. So where's the present moment? It's right here, okay? So that circle, that table, is the present moment table. So this is an amplified or a magnified view of what this present moment, the present moment table, looks like, okay? So in this present moment, there are two distinct hemispheres or neighborhoods, we call them, all right? Now I want you to take this portion of the circle, and I'm just going to label it with the letter P for physical. You can write the word out if you wish. P for physical. We're going to label this one non-P for non-physical. So why do I call it non-physical? You know, we talk a lot about, you know, physical things and energetic aspects of things, and, you know, but for clarity purposes, even, you know, our physical world is still energy, right? It's just vibrating at a frequency that we experience with our five senses, right? So one of the themes for this neighborhood is this is the aspect or hemisphere of this present moment that we experience with our five senses, okay? Now the other hemisphere or neighborhood of this present moment I've labeled non-P, and as I said, it's not so much, you know, one's energy and one isn't, because it's all energy. Non-P simply means non-physical. It's the aspect or the characteristics of this present moment that don't fit in our five senses. And just, we'll go into this in detail as in the following modules as we work through the manual, but just so you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about, one of the things that fit here is our thoughts. Right? So by that I mean, you know, you can't weigh a thought, right, or measure it with a tape measure, but just because it's non-physical doesn't mean it's non-real. Important thing to remember, just because it's non-physical and anything else and everything else that fits in here doesn't mean they're non-real, and it sure doesn't mean that they're not relevant to our experience in this present moment. Okay? So, physical, non-physical. All right? Now I want you to, and I'm just going to use a different color, this band in the center, I want you to label it time. Okay? So in this present moment, this map, we talked about maps earlier in the manual, this in the present moment, we have a physical aspect, fits in our five senses, a non-physical, it just so simply doesn't fit in our five senses. One of the characteristics of this is our thoughts, and then we have this buffer of time. Okay, now I'm going to take another color, and I'm going to label this circle as our I am, right? So remember how in the coffee shop, you and I are seated at the present moment table, right? We aren't the table, we're seated at the table. And that's an important thing to remember too. This is you, right? And while we play around, if you will, in this, you know, the day-to-day experiences, you are not your experience, are not your thoughts, are not your physical world. They're very real, and they have a very real effect, and we work with them, but they are not you. And we talk about that in the manual as well. Okay? All right. Now, in the manual, we talk about direction of flow. So everything in this present moment has a flow or a direction of flow. And we call it the creative flow. So everything that you experience here in this moment starts here in the non-physical. It starts in the non-physical and then over a period of time, right, manifests into the physical. And we can actually label this the creative flow, right? And actually in the workbook, one of the other labels we use for it, I'll just abbreviate this, we call it your power flow, all right? This is that creative flow. So this is the process of creation, and it's taking place all the time. It's, and I don't like to use the word, but we will for clarity purposes, if you will, it's a law, right? So think of the law of gravity, right? So the law of gravity is a law, and its effects we see around us, I mean, all the time, right? So this creative flow is the same thing. Everything starts here and then manifests through to here. Now in your manual, I'll give you an example, and it seems like a really simple example, but it's a very accurate example of this process. And it talks basically about, you know, you're sitting in a chair in your living room, right? And you're sitting in a chair and you look around and you go, you know what, I think I would like to have the chair over there, right? And so you get up and you move the chair over and you sit down and you go, okay, well, that was simple, right? And it was. But this process still played out, right? You were in one position and you had a thought, right? You had a thought, you had a desire to have your physical world change, right? And that the chair was going to go from here over to there. Then from that thought, it went through that creative flow, manifesting through into the physical, you move the chair over to here. And I know this is very simple, but this process is scalable. So the same process applies to something as mundane, if you will, as moving a chair, as it does to maybe living a whole different health lifestyle. Maybe moving to another country, maybe changing occupation, maybe starting your own business, or or stepping into a healthy, evolving relationship. It doesn't matter what it is. Everything starts here and flows through into the physical. So direction of flow, and we talk more about that as we go through the manual, but just for now, just understand what I'm talking about here, okay? Now, one other aspect of our five senses world is, this is the aspect where we have least control, right? This is the hemisphere or the neighborhood where we have the least control, and I know we've all experienced experiences here that, weren't to our liking, we didn't agree with, usually came without notice, often caused us to be politically correct inconveniences, right? And, we have very little control, right? We often say this is the hemisphere where stuff happens, right? Now, conversely, this is the hemisphere where we have total control. Yeah, you may, as soon as you see that, you may go, I don't think so. I mean, have you tried to control the thoughts in my mind? I know I have, and haven't had a lot of luck with them, And that often is a true statement for you now. But by the time we're through this course, I believe that truth will change. And as a matter of fact, it really is true. This is the area where we have total control. We just haven't been taught in a very mechanical, practical way what this area looks like, how to navigate it, and how to manage it. And that, for me, is where the gold is. Because as you learn how to navigate this will follow suit. I don't know if we've listed it in your manual at this point, but I'm going to put it on this drawing anyway. This very much is the cause to this being, and I don't know if you can read that too well, but this being the effect. This is the cause, and this is the effect. Now, we mentioned just briefly in the manual at this portion of the direction of flow that most people live in. And that flow goes this way. Right? And I don't know if we've actually used these words in the manual, but I'll use them here. Often we can call this the victim flow. We feel we are a victim, if you will, of our external circumstances. And it's basically the opposite of this flow, right? So, and well, this theme plays its way throughout the manual. The value and the power in understanding, being able to identify which way the flow is going and be able to get it going in the other direction. This is our power flow. This is where everything is possible, okay? One other comment about this, and then we'll close this module off. Everything in our physical world, both pleasant and unpleasant, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything in our physical world, no matter how much we love it, or I'll use the word hate it, you know, has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And we probably had these experiences. You know, you're on a vacation, right? And you're just enjoying yourself, and you just wish, you know, the vacation could last forever. But you know, you know, in due course in time, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then it's over. And then we've also probably had the experiences when, you know, we're in something that's absolutely miserable, right? And it just feels like we've been there forever, right? But in due course in time, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. An important thing to remember. Everything here is in constant motion. Even though when we look at it, it might not look that way. Everything here is in motion. Okay? So, present moment, two hemispheres, the physical, the non-physical, this banner of time. This flow is a creative flow. Everything flows this way. This is the flow we use when we're manifesting, right? This is where our five senses live. This is where our thoughts live. This is where we have least control. This is where we have total control. Everything here has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Most of the, we call them the normals, right? Most of the normals, the flow goes this way. And it's actually the cause and the effect, they've switched it around. So they say that this is the cause to the effect here. Very much a victim, if you will, of their circumstances. All right? Perfect. Go back to your manual, browse through it, and I'll see you in the next module.